The alien sun cast 3 shadows behind Liam Drake as he stood before the ancient temple's entrance. Its towering spires of iridescent crystal stretched toward the purple sky, defying both gravity and human understanding. After 6 months of searching across the Ethorian desert, his expedition had finally found it, the legendary Temple of the Eternal Bond. Base camp, do you copy? Liam adjusted his environmental suit's communications array. I'm at the temple entrance. The radiation readings are within acceptable parameters. Copy that, Liam, responded Rebecca Morgan, his chief science officer. But please remember the protocol. No direct contact with any artifacts without proper containment procedures. Liam smiled beneath his helmet. After 10 years of exploring outer colonies, he knew the rules by heart. Yet something about this place felt different. The temple seemed to pulse with an inner light, as if it were alive and breathing. The entrance portal activated as he approached, ancient machinery humming to life. Holographic symbols danced in the air, telling stories in a language lost to time. Liam's translation matrix worked overtime, trying to decipher their meaning. Fascinating, he muttered, recording everything with his suit's cameras. The technology is still operational after all these centuries. The main chamber opened into a vast hall, its walls lined with crystalline pillars that seemed to sing with ethereal energy. Artifacts from the ancient Ethorian civilization filled display cases that appeared to float in mid-air. But it was the doorway at the far end that caught his attention, a sealed chamber marked with warning symbols even his untrained eye could recognize. Liam, we're picking up an energy spike, Rebecca's voice crackled through the comm, whatever you do, don't. The transmission cut off as he crossed the chamber's threshold. Inside, suspended in a beam of light, floated a golden mask of extraordinary beauty. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move and shift before his eyes. Base camp? Liam tried to re-establish communication, but only static answered. Rebecca, do you copy? The mask pulsed with an inner light, almost beckoning to him. Every scientific instinct told him to retreat, to wait for his team. But something stronger pulled him forward, curiosity, destiny, or perhaps simple human foolishness. Just a quick scan, he told himself, reaching for his handheld analyzer. But as he moved closer, his suit's glove brushed against the mask's surface. The chamber erupted with light. Energy coursed through the temple, and the mask began to spin, releasing waves of golden energy that filled the room. Liam stumbled backward, shielding his eyes as the light coalesced into a humanoid form. When the brilliance faded, a woman stood before him. Her skin had a slight violet tinge, and her hair shimmered with starlight. She wore robes that seemed woven from the same material as the mask, and her eyes held the wisdom of centuries. I am Princess Zanara Voss of the Royal House of Ethoria, she announced in perfect universal standard, her voice carrying both authority and curiosity. You have awakened me by touching the sacred mask of binding. According to our most ancient laws, we are now betrothed. Liam's jaw dropped inside his helmet. What? There must be some mistake. I only touched it accidentally. Zanara's expression remained serene but firm. There are no accidents in matters of destiny, Earthborn. The mask chooses only those worthy of joining our royal line. You have been selected. Now, hold on, Liam raised his hands in protest. Where I come from, we don't get engaged just by touching masks. This is a cultural misunderstanding. Cultural understanding will come with time, my future consort. Zanara waved her hand, and the chamber's doors sealed themselves. But for now, you must accept your fate. The mask's choice is irreversible. As if to emphasize her point, the temple's crystal walls began to pulse with energy, and ancient machinery hummed to life around them. Liam realized with growing alarm that his simple exploration mission had just become far more complicated. Your people have a saying, do they not? Zanara tilted her head, studying him with those ancient eyes. In for a penny, in for a pound? You've touched my golden mask, now you spend a night with me, human. The way she said it, mixing formal declaration with what seemed like genuine amusement, made Liam wonder if she was somehow enjoying his discomfort. But before he could formulate a response, the temple's security systems activated fully, sealing them both within the sacred chamber. Looking at the sealed doors, then back at his unexpected fiancé, Liam Drake, veteran explorer and self-proclaimed expert in alien cultures, realized he was completely out of his depth. Somewhere in the universe, he was sure, someone was laughing at the irony of it all. Perhaps, he said carefully, we could start with an introduction over dinner instead? Zanara's lips curved into a smile that somehow managed to be both regal and mischievous. That would be acceptable, future consort. But do not think it will change the binding nature of our engagement. The mask has spoken, and its word is law. As the chamber's lights adjusted to a more comfortable level, Liam couldn't help but wonder how he would explain this in his mission report. Accidentally got engaged to an alien princess, probably wasn't covered in the standard Earth Alliance protocols. The Grand Council chamber of the Ethorian temple complex was a marvel of crystalline architecture, but Liam Drake barely noticed its beauty. His attention was fixed on the circle of ancient advisors who regarded him with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright suspicion. 12 hours had passed since his accidental engagement to Princess Zanara, and things had only gotten more complicated. The sacred mask of binding has not awakened in 3 centuries, intoned High Counselor Theron, his silver robes shimming with embedded starlight. Its choice cannot be ignored or dismissed. Zanara sat beside Liam, her presence both reassuring and unsettling. She had changed from her stasis robes into formal attire that made her look even more regal, if that was possible. Honored Council, while the traditions must be respected, perhaps we should explain their significance to my betrothed. Liam noticed her slight hesitation on the last word and wondered if she was having second thoughts too. But before he could ponder this further, a holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing the history of her people. The Ethorian civilization once spanned 1,000 worlds, Theron explained, as images of a vast stellar empire flickered before them. But a great catastrophe forced us into decline. Only the royal bloodline, carried by Princess Zanara, contains the genetic key to our future recovery. Our scientists discovered a way to preserve our princess in stasis, added Counselor Venna, a stern-faced woman with eyes that seemed to pierce straight through Liam's soul. The mask was programmed to awaken her only when it detected a genetically compatible mate who could help restore our civilization. Liam's scientific mind began racing. Wait, are you saying the mask performed some kind of genetic analysis when I touched it? Indeed, Zanara confirmed, turning to face him. The mask's technology is beyond even our current understanding. It was created by our ancestors at the height of their power. But there's more, Theron continued gravely. Our people are dying out. Without new genetic diversity introduced through the royal line, we face extinction within 3 generations. The mask's choice of you may be our last hope. The weight of this revelation hit Liam like a physical force. He looked at Zanara and saw the burden she carried reflected in her eyes. This wasn't just about ancient customs or arranged marriages, it was about the survival of an entire civilization. How many of your people remain? He asked quietly. Less than 10,000, Zanara replied, her voice carrying a deep sadness. Scattered across 3 colony worlds. Without the royal bloodline's ability to activate our most advanced technology, we cannot restore what was lost. As if on cue, a group of younger Ethorians entered the chamber, carrying various artifacts and displays. They began explaining the specific traditions and responsibilities that would come with his role as royal consort. Liam's head spun as they detailed elaborate ceremonies, genetic compatibility rituals, and governmental duties he would be expected to perform. This is overwhelming, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. On Earth, we usually get to know someone before discussing marriage, let alone the future of their species. Zanara placed a gentle hand on his arm, and he felt a slight tingle where their skin made contact. I understand this is not what you expected when you entered our temple. If there was another way. There isn't, Theron interrupted firmly. The mask's choice is binding. To reject it would mean the end of our civilization. Liam stood and walked to one of the chamber's vast windows, gazing out at the alien landscape. The three suns were setting, painting the crystalline structures in impossible colors. He thought about his life back on Earth, his research, his career, his dreams of exploration. None of it had prepared him for this. But as he turned back to look at Zanara, he saw something in her expression that gave him pause. Behind the regal exterior, behind the weight of tradition and duty, he glimpsed a woman who was just as trapped as he was. What happens now? He asked, addressing both the council and his supposed bride-to-be. Now, said another advisor, stepping forward with an ancient scroll, we begin preparations for the ceremony of union. The stars must be in proper alignment, which gives us 3 Earth weeks. 3 weeks? Liam's eyebrows shot up. That's rather quick for arranging an interstellar wedding, isn't it? The timing is not negotiable, Theron stated. The genetic compatibility window established by the mask is limited. Beyond that time, the bond will fade, and our princess will return to stasis, perhaps for another 3 centuries. Liam caught Zanara watching him intently. There was something in her gaze, a question, perhaps, or a warning. But before he could decipher it, the chamber doors burst open, and a new group of Ethorians rushed in. High Council, the leader of the group announced, the news of the princess's awakening has spread. The opposition is already mobilizing their forces. They claim any union with an outsider will taint the royal bloodline. The chamber erupted into urgent discussions. Liam watched as Zanara's shoulders tensed, her royal composure cracking slightly for the first time. He began to understand that there was much more at stake here than just his personal freedom or Ethorian traditions. As the council argued about security measures and political implications, Zanara leaned close to him. I am sorry, she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. I never wanted to force anyone into this position. But my people. I know, Liam replied softly, surprising himself with the gentleness in his voice. Duty can be a heavier burden than any physical chain. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the chaos of the council chamber faded away. Liam saw past the princess to the person beneath, someone who had sacrificed 3 centuries of her life for her people's future, only to wake up to even more responsibility and pressure. The moment was broken by Theron's commanding voice. The betrothed couple must be moved to the secure palace complex immediately. Until the ceremony is complete, we cannot risk any interference. As guards began to escort them from the chamber, Liam realized that his simple exploration mission had evolved into something far more complex. He was now caught in a web of ancient prophecies, political intrigue, and the desperate hopes of a dying civilization. And at the center of it all was Zanara, his mysterious, duty-bound fiancée, who seemed to carry both the weight of her people's future and secrets she had yet to reveal. The royal palace of Ethoria Prime made Earth's greatest architectural achievements look like children's building blocks. Crystalline towers spiraled impossibly into the violet sky, connected by bridges of pure energy. But to Liam Drake, it felt more like a prison than a palace. A week had passed since their arrival, and the wedding preparations had reached a fever pitch. Servants rushed through the corridors carrying exotic fabrics and ceremonial artifacts, while security teams patrolled with increasing frequency due to rumors of opposition activity. Liam stood at the window of his luxurious quarters, watching the 3 suns set in sequence. His Earth Alliance uniform had been replaced with traditional Ethorian robes that adjusted their color based on his mood, currently a troubled shade of blue-gray. The ceremonial robes suit you, came Zanara's voice from behind him. He turned to find her standing in the doorway, having somehow slipped past his guards. Princess, he bowed slightly, noting that she wore simpler attire than usual. Should you be here? The traditions. The traditions say many things, she interrupted, closing the door behind her. Including that I'm not supposed to be awake in this century, yet here we are. Something was different about her tonight. The regal mask she usually wore had slipped, revealing a weariness that matched his own. She crossed to the window and stood beside him, close enough that he could smell the faint, exotic perfume she wore. I need to tell you something, Zanara said quietly, her eyes fixed on the setting suns. About the opposition, and why they're really fighting against our union. Liam turned to face her fully. I thought it was about preserving the royal bloodline's purity. That's what they claim publicly. She finally met his gaze. The truth is more complicated. The opposition believes that the ancient traditions have held our people back, prevented us from finding our own path forward. They see this marriage as another chain binding us to the past. And what do you believe? The question hung in the air between them. Zanara's hand moved to touch the ceremonial bracelet she wore, a miniature version of the golden mask that had started all of this. I believe, she said carefully, that duty without choice is just another form of prison. The mask chose you, Liam, but neither of us chose this. Before he could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Red light flooded the chamber as security systems activated. Opposition forces have breached the outer defenses, announced a voice over the palace's communication system. All personnel to battle stations. Secure the royal couple immediately. Footsteps thundered in the corridor outside. But instead of looking worried, Zanara smiled, a real smile, not her usual diplomatic one. Perfect timing, she said, pressing her bracelet. A hidden door slid open in the chamber wall. How do you feel about making our own choices, Captain Drake? Liam stared at the secret passage, then back at her. You planned this? I've had 3 centuries of stasis dreams to learn every secret of this palace, she replied. The opposition's attack is providing cover for something I've wanted to do since the moment I woke up, escape. The footsteps were getting closer. Liam's mind raced through the implications. If we run, won't that put your people at risk? The council said. The council says many things, Zanara cut him off. But they don't know all the secrets of our ancestors. The mask's power, the prophecies, there's more to them than what they've told us. Come with me, and I'll explain everything. The chamber doors began to slide open. Liam had seconds to decide. He looked at Zanara, really looked at her, and saw not a princess bound by tradition, but a woman fighting for the right to choose her own path. He took her hand. Lead the way. They slipped into the passage just as guards burst into the chamber. The hidden door sealed behind them, leaving them in a softly lit tunnel that seemed to pulse with the same energy as the temple where they'd first met. These passages run throughout the palace complex, Zanara explained as they hurried along. They were built as escape routes during the Great Catastrophe. Only those of royal blood can activate them. Where are we going? To the ancient archives beneath the palace. There's something there you need to see, the true story of the Golden Mask, and why the opposition might be right about some things. They descended through a maze of tunnels, the sounds of chaos from above growing fainter. Liam noticed that Zanara navigated the passages without hesitation, confirming his suspicion that she'd planned this for some time. Why didn't you try to escape before? He asked as they paused at an intersection. Zanara's expression grew distant. Because I needed someone willing to break the rules with me. The mask may have chosen you, Liam, but perhaps it chose you for reasons nobody expected. Before he could ask what she meant, voices echoed from a nearby passage. Opposition forces had found their way into the tunnel system. This way, Zanara pulled him down a side passage. We're almost there. Just remember, everything you think you know about our traditions, about the mask, about my people's future, it might all be wrong. As they raced through the ancient corridors, pursued by both loyalists and rebels, Liam realized that his accidental touch of a golden mask hadn't just entangled him in an alien marriage custom, it had dropped him into the middle of a civilization struggle to define its future. And somehow, running through these hidden passages with a princess who was nothing like he'd initially assumed, he felt more alive than he had in years of careful, by-the-book exploration. "Zanara," he called as they reached a massive door covered in pulsing symbols, "whatever we find in there, whatever the truth is about the mask and your people's traditions. I'm glad I touched that mask." She turned to him, starlight dancing in her eyes. "So am I, Liam Drake. So am I." The door began to open, revealing a chamber that would change everything they thought they knew about destiny, duty, and the true meaning of the Golden Mask's choice. The ancient archive chamber was a vast spherical space, its walls covered in flowing streams of light that Liam realized were actually strings of data. At the center floated a crystalline structure that pulsed with the same golden energy as the mask that had started their adventure. "The heart of memory," Zanara breathed, approaching the crystal. "Every secret, every truth our ancestors wanted to preserve, it's all here." The sounds of pursuit echoed through the tunnels behind them. They had minutes at most before either the opposition or the royal guards found them. "What exactly are we looking for?" Liam asked, watching as Zanara placed her hand on the crystal's surface. "The truth about the mask." Her fingers danced across the crystal, activating ancient interfaces. "Our people think it's a tool of tradition, binding chosen pairs together for the sake of bloodlines and political alliances. But in my stasis dreams, I saw something else." The chamber hummed to life around them, and a holographic figure materialized, an elderly Ethorian woman wearing robes similar to the golden mask's surface. "I am Keeper Naira," the hologram announced, "creator of the Mask of Binding, and if you're seeing this message, then someone has finally understood its true purpose." Liam and Zanara exchanged glances as the message continued. "Our civilization is dying," the ancient keeper explained, "not from external threats or genetic degradation, but from the weight of our own traditions. We became so focused on preserving our ways that we forgot how to live, how to love, how to grow." The hologram waved its hand, displaying scenes from the Ethorian past, arranged marriages, political unions, all conducted with the same cold formality that Liam had witnessed in the current council. "The mask was never meant to be a chain," Naira continued. "It was designed to find pairs whose hearts could resonate together, whose union would be based on genuine connection rather than duty. Only such a bond could revitalize our people's spirit." "But the council said it was about genetic compatibility," Liam protested. Zanara shook her head, understanding dawning in her eyes. "The genetics were secondary. The mask doesn't just scan for biological matches, it reads hearts, souls, the potential for real love." "Precisely," the hologram confirmed. "When two hearts truly choose each other, the mask's power is broken, and with it, the cycle of loveless tradition that has stifled our society." Before they could process this revelation, the chamber doors burst open. Opposition forces poured in, led by a tall Ethorian with battle scars across his face. "Commander Valdis," Zanara recognized him. "So you found us." "Step away from the heart of memory," Valdis ordered, raising an energy weapon. "We won't let you use ancient technology to enforce more outdated traditions." "You don't understand," Liam stepped forward, placing himself between the weapons and Zanara. "The traditions you're fighting against, they're not what you think." "Stand down, human," Valdis warned. "This isn't your fight." But Zanara moved to stand beside Liam, her hand finding his. "You're wrong, Commander. This is exactly his fight. The mask chose him not to continue our old ways, but to help break them." The chamber's crystal structure began to pulse more intensely, responding to their joined hands. The hologram of Keeper Naira smiled. "The mask's power grows not from obligation," the ancient keeper's message continued, "but from choice. When two hearts freely choose each other, it creates a resonance that can rewrite the very fabric of our society. Energy began to spiral around Liam and Zanara, golden light mixing with streams of data from the heart of memory. The opposition forces lowered their weapons, transfixed by the display. "I understand now," Zanara said softly, turning to face Liam. "Why the mask chose you. Not because you'd blindly follow our traditions, but because you'd question them. Because you'd help me find the courage to question them too." Royal guards appeared at another entrance, led by High Counselor Theron himself. "Princess, stop this madness. The traditions must be preserved." But the golden light grew stronger, and in its glow, Liam saw every moment he'd shared with Zanara in a new light, her subtle rebellions against protocol, her carefully hidden doubts, her growing trust in him. This wasn't just about duty or destiny anymore. This was about two people from different worlds finding something real in the midst of chaos. The choice was always ours, he realized, squeezing her hand. The mask didn't bind us, it gave us the chance to choose. The heart of memory erupted with light, projecting images of Ethorian history throughout the chamber. But these weren't the formal ceremonies and political unions they'd been shown before. These were moments of genuine connection, of love transcending tradition, of choices freely made. "Your people don't need arranged marriages or political alliances," Liam addressed both the opposition and the royal guards. "They need the freedom to find real connections, to choose their own paths." Zanara stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of centuries of tradition but the warmth of newfound freedom. "The mask wasn't created to enforce our old ways, but to show us a new path. And I choose to walk that path." She turned to Liam, her eyes shining, "with someone who helped me see that duty without love is no duty at all." The chamber fell silent as ancient truths and present choices hung in the balance. The fate of a civilization rested not on forced traditions or political maneuverings, but on something far more powerful, the simple, profound act of two hearts choosing each other. The ancient archive chamber had become a battlefield of ideologies. On one side stood the opposition forces led by Commander Valdis, on the other the royal guards and High Counselor Theron. Between them, surrounded by the golden light of the heart of memory, stood Liam and Zanara, their hands still clasped, their destiny still uncertain. "This changes nothing," Theron declared, though his voice wavered. "The traditions have kept our people alive for millennia. Without them, we are nothing." "You're wrong," Zanara replied, her voice carrying the wisdom of both past and present. "Our traditions were meant to guide us, not chain us. The mask's creator understood that love, real love, is the only force powerful enough to revive our civilization." The hologram of Keeper Naira flickered beside them, adding her ancient voice to the debate. "The mask was created in our civilization's darkest hour, not to preserve our old ways, but to ensure our people would have a future. A future built on choice, on genuine connection, on the power of hearts that choose each other freely." Commander Valdis stepped forward, his weapon lowered but still ready. "Pretty words, Princess. But how can we trust that this isn't another royal deception?" "Because of this," Liam said, reaching for the golden mask that had been brought to the chamber by one of the royal guards. As his fingers touched its surface, instead of the binding energy they'd all expected, the mask began to dissolve, its liquid metal flowing like water between his hands. Gasps echoed through the chamber as the mask reformed into two identical rings, hovering in the air between Liam and Zanara. The heart of memory pulsed in response, projecting scenes from their short time together, not just the formal moments, but the small ones. The subtle glances, the shared doubts, the growing trust, the genuine connection that had formed despite all the pressure and politics surrounding them. "I've spent 3 centuries in stasis," Zanara addressed the chamber, her voice clear and strong. "I accepted that duty because I loved my people. But now I understand that the greatest duty we have is to truth, and the truth is, love cannot be forced, tradition cannot be maintained through obligation alone, and a civilization cannot survive without the freedom to grow and change." She turned to Liam, her eyes holding both question and answer. When I first awoke and saw you, I thought the mask had chosen my future. Now I understand that it only opened a door. The choice was always meant to be ours. Liam felt the weight of history, of tradition, of expectation in that moment. But looking at Zanara, he saw beyond the princess to the woman who had dared to question everything she'd been taught, who had trusted him enough to seek the truth, who had shown him that duty and love didn't have to be opposing forces. On Earth, he said, speaking not just to her but to everyone present, we have a saying, the heart wants what it wants. I came to this planet as an explorer, seeking knowledge. Instead, I found something far more valuable, someone who shows me that the greatest discoveries aren't made in ancient temples or alien archives, but in the moments when we dare to choose our own path. The floating rings pulsed with golden light as Liam took one and held it out to Zanara. I don't choose you because of a mask, or tradition, or duty. I choose you because in the short time I've known you, you've shown me that true strength lies not in blindly following the past, but in having the courage to forge a new future. Zanara's eyes shimmered with starlight as she took the other ring. And I choose you, Liam Drake, not because ancient technology declared us compatible, but because you helped me find the courage to question, to seek truth, and to believe that love and duty can coexist when they come from genuine choice. As they slipped the rings onto each other's fingers, the heart of memory erupted with light that filled the entire chamber. The golden energy spread outward, touching everyone present, opposition fighters, royal guards, council members. In that light, ancient prejudices and rigid traditions seemed to soften, making room for new possibilities. The mask's power is broken, Keeper Naira's hologram announced, because its true purpose has been fulfilled. A new age begins for the Ithorian people, one built not on the obligations of the past, but on the choices of the present. Commander Valdis was the first to lower his weapon completely. Perhaps, he said thoughtfully, both sides have been fighting for the wrong things. It's not about preserving tradition or destroying it, but about finding a way to honor our past while embracing change. High Counselor Theron stepped forward, his expression softened by understanding. The ancient records speak of a time when our people were known not just for their technology or traditions, but for their capacity to love, to grow, to evolve. Perhaps it is time we remembered that heritage. The opposition forces and royal guards began to lower their weapons, centuries of conflict giving way to the possibility of a new beginning. The heart of memory continued to pulse, but now its light felt less like ancient power and more like dawn breaking after a long night. Zanara addressed her people, her hand still joined with Liam's. Let our union be not the continuation of old traditions, but the beginning of new ones. Let it stand as proof that love freely chosen is stronger than any duty imposed, that bridges can be built between different worlds, and that the future belongs to those brave enough to choose it. As the three sons of Ithoria Prime rose outside the ancient chamber, their light mixed with the golden glow of new beginnings. Liam looked at the ring on his finger, not a chain of obligation, but a symbol of choice, and then at Zanara, who had become so much more than an alien princess he'd accidentally awakened. So, he said with a smile, about that wedding. Zanara laughed, the sound carrying all the joy of newfound freedom. Yes, but this time we plan it together, choosing what traditions to keep and what new ones to create. And as they sealed their choice with a kiss, witnessed by former enemies and now united in hope, the last of the mask's energy transformed into a shower of golden light, not binding them together, but celebrating the power of two hearts that had found their way to each other across the stars, defied the weight of tradition, and chosen love.